We often take timekeeping for granted. Our modern lives revolve around the Gregorian calendar, a system we inherit rather than choose. But have you ever wondered about its origins or why we follow this particular calendar system? The story begins with the Julian calendar, established by Julius Caesar in 45 BC. This calendar, based on the solar year, was a significant advancement for its time. It aimed to align the calendar with the Earth's revolutions around the sun. The Julian calendar gave us the familiar 12 months and a leap year every 4 years. It served as the standard calendar for centuries throughout Europe and beyond. However, even the mighty Roman Empire couldn't conquer the intricacies of celestial mechanics. The Julian calendar, with its seemingly elegant design, harbored a tiny flaw, a slight miscalculation that would have significant consequences over time. The Julian calendar, for all its merits, had one major flaw. It calculated the solar year as 365.25 days, a close approximation but off by about 11 minutes. This seemingly small discrepancy, accumulating year after year, began to have a noticeable effect. Over centuries, the Julian calendar drifted out of sync with the Earth's actual orbit. The spring equinox, a crucial marker for agricultural societies, started shifting noticeably earlier. By the 16th century, the Julian calendar was out of sync with the solar year by about 10 days. This drift posed a significant problem for the Catholic Church, which relied on an accurate calendar to determine the date of Easter. The discrepancy between the calendar and the actual seasons was impossible to ignore. Reform was needed, and the responsibility fell upon the shoulders of the head of the Catholic Church. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII took on the challenge of fixing the calendar conundrum. He assembled a team of astronomers and mathematicians tasked with devising a more accurate system. Their solution? The Gregorian calendar, a refinement of the Julian calendar. The Gregorian calendar, named after the Pope who commissioned it, made two significant changes. First, it corrected the leap year calculation, aligning the calendar more precisely with the solar year. Second, it eliminated 10 days from the calendar to account for the drift that had already occurred. Imagine the confusion when people went to bed on October 4th, 1582, only to wake up on October 15th. This calendar adjustment, while disorienting, was necessary to bring the calendar back in sync with the Earth's orbit. The adoption of the Gregorian calendar was not a swift or universally accepted event. Catholic countries, under the Pope's directive, implemented the change relatively quickly. However, Protestant countries were initially hesitant, viewing the new calendar as a Catholic imposition. Other nations, hesitant to disrupt their established traditions, clung to the Julian calendar for centuries. The transition was gradual, with some countries adopting the Gregorian calendar in the 18th century, others in the 19th, and some even later. The resistance to the Gregorian calendar highlights how changes, even those based on scientific accuracy, can encounter cultural and political obstacles. It took centuries for the Gregorian calendar to achieve near-global adoption. Section 5. April Fools. A calendar prank? The Gregorian calendar reform had an unexpected cultural offshoot, April Fool's Day. One theory suggests that the day originated from the confusion surrounding the calendar change. Those who clung to the old Julian calendar and celebrated the new year in late March became the target of pranks and jokes. While the origin of April Fool's Day is debated, the connection to the calendar shift is intriguing. It reminds us that even scientific advancements can have unintended and humorous consequences. The Gregorian calendar, designed to bring order to timekeeping, inadvertently contributed to a day of light-hearted chaos and trickery. It's a reminder that human history is full of these unexpected and often amusing twists and turns. Section 6. across the pond, the Gregorian calendar in the New World. The American colonies, under British rule, initially followed the Julian calendar. However, after gaining independence, the United States, along with Britain, adopted the Gregorian calendar in 1752. This transition, though delayed, reflects the eventual acceptance of the Gregorian system's accuracy and practicality. The adoption of the Gregorian calendar in the New World highlights how scientific advancements often transcend political and geographical boundaries, eventually becoming the standard for global communication and interaction. Section 7 Calendar. Myths and misconceptions. The transition to the Gregorian calendar wasn't without its share of myths and misunderstandings. Some people believed the calendar change shortened their lives by eliminating days. Others feared the disruption of religious holidays and traditions. These reactions highlight the human tendency to resist change, especially when it comes to deeply ingrained beliefs and practices. The Gregorian calendar, despite its scientific basis, faced skepticism and resistance, fueled by misinformation and a fear of the unknown. The myths surrounding the Gregorian calendar remind us that even the most logical and beneficial changes can be met with resistance and fear, highlighting the importance of education and open dialogue in navigating societal shifts. Section 8, the Julian versus Gregorian debate. Does it matter today? In our modern world, the Gregorian calendar reigns supreme, governing our schedules, financial transactions, and global communication. The Julian calendar, relegated to the history books, seems like a relic of a bygone era. However, the debate over which calendar is better continues in some circles. Some argue that the Julian calendar, with its fixed leap year cycle, is more elegant and easier to calculate. Others point to the Gregorian calendar's accuracy in aligning with the solar year as its primary advantage. The debate, though largely irrelevant to our daily lives, raises interesting questions about how we measure and organize time. It reminds us that even seemingly fundamental systems like calendars are human constructs, subject to debate, refinement, and even occasional revision. Section 9, Our Place in Time. The Gregorian calendar, born out of a need for accuracy and driven by scientific understanding, shapes our perception of time. It binds us to a common system, allowing us to schedule meetings, commemorate historical events, and plan for the future. As we navigate our modern world, governed by the Gregorian calendar's precise rhythm, it's worth remembering the historical journey that brought us to this point. From the Julian calendar's ancient origins to the Gregorian reforms and the myths they inspired, the story of our calendar is a fascinating tapestry of science, culture, and human ingenuity.